we're going to give this a go.
Ah,
So,
yes.
if you guys don't mind, and I'm so sad I missed the recording of your introductions and everything. So, I work Barbara and I know each other and work together on a lot of initiatives. So I'm Tamara Trussell, the founder of Move Past Plastic. I I'm a climate reality leader, master watershed steward. I volunteer for the alarm for stream testing. I'm on the board of my local creeks, kind of the Gwinnett Creek Watershed Association, on the board of my Climate Action Commission, and several other boards. But I started Move Past Plastic. It'll be 2.5 years now. I was the first group to actually take Judith Ink's class from Beyond Plastics. I was concerned with plastics and researching it prior to taking her class. So I think it's fantastic that they started the local and affiliates groups. Suzanne, you might want to be reaching out to them, because that's why I started Move Past Plastic. Like you said, Suzanne, to work locally, to take local actions, and we can support each other. Our big sisters, Climate Reality and Beyond Plastic, Plastic Pollution Coalition, PFAS Coalition. There's so many organizations, right? And our I call them our big sister groups. We can help them with their initiatives. We can bring their initiatives local. They can help us do stuff and everything. So I like to really work together and network, and I work with the Halt the Harm Network too. So that's just a little bit about me and my background. Two of the biggest campaigns that Move Past Plastic is working on is the PFAS campaign. And that is a campaign that is local, that we are here where I am. I'm trying to educate the municipalities about PFAS for the last 2 years, to tell them about the unregulated contaminant rule 5, which is $10 billion that the Biden administration has set aside for regulating PFAS. And if you don't know what those are, I'll go over it in a minute. And to get them to prepare to test their drinking and wastewater. January the 1st, Pennsylvania has set maximum contamination levels for two of them, PFOA and PFOAS, and they will have to comply within 3 years. Those municipalities who haven't started testing their water and working on this are going to have a very difficult time, because there's that $10 billion is going to not last. Okay. It's like a drop in a bucket. Almost every municipality with new EPA proposed advisory levels of basically non-detect for two of those, PFOA, PFOS, and then 6 for the Gen X. You're going to be able to find PFAS in everywhere, because it's in 98% of humans' blood and everything. So that's one aspect, is to, help them understand what these upcoming regulations that they need to comply, where to get testing, what kind of things are available for remediation and everything. And I'll be going into a toolkit that I have on this. The other part of the campaign is a little less local focused, and that is for me to educate people like you guys about PFAS, and to give you my toolkits, which are a work in progress, because this PFAS situation has changed markedly over the last 3 years since I took the first PFAS accelerator course through Halt the Harm and learned about it. And so I'm constantly updating, right? Rules, regulations, that just technology, ability to test for particular chemicals and at what levels, everything, right? So I rely, I really count on you guys to help me. If you see something new, throw it my way, and I'll update the toolkit for all of us to use. So I normally have a pretty long part one presentation and then a part two. And the part one is education of what PFAS are, and then moving from that into the different maps so you can learn how to find your potential point source pollution. And then part two is where I go over how do you reach out to your municipality, specifically, and it's very interactive, very personal. And both of them, kind of are, but particularly part two. So today's just a little different because, I was inviting the greater community at large. As you see, we have a nice big room. Part of the reason that the room is not filled is because I just advertised it 3 weeks ago for the first time and put in a reminder this evening. So not a lot of advertisement. My Move Past Plastic members have all been out shopping and having early Christmases, and they're all like, sick in some way. That's obvious, and they don't feel comfortable coming before Christmas to expose people. So you won't get to meet them. So, oh well, but that's okay. So just real quickly, what do you guys know about PFAS? So, what is it and why do we have concerns about it? And just feel free to just kind of pop your hand up and I'll call on you and, learn a little bit about things. Go ahead. Suzanne, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm aware from a be careful what plastic containers to reuse. From a business perspective, for example, one of the things I just did in Germany, the ice cream containers in Germany typically are plastic. And I noticed that everybody around me is reusing those ice cream plastic containers to pass on pieces of cake and stuff. And then I learned that you're actually not supposed to reuse those containers. And I had actually sent them a mail and said, well, I actually in America, I get ice cream in paper, but in a way it's cool because at least those containers are reused everywhere because you can really solidly lock them and put stuff back in the freezer, right? Mm-hmm. And it turned out that you're actually not supposed to use them more than once, right? So this is just a tiny weeny example for and my family, we have glass containers to store stuff. So this is one, and then the other one is clothing that's polyester. I believe that's another PFAS thing, but I'm not sure. But I'm actually putting, if I have a hoodie that's cuddly hoodie, I put it in an extra bag in the wash. But then I don't understand what happens with the plastic microplastics that are caught in the bag, because where does that go, right? How do you clean it? So stupid little stuff. And then my other question is really around, it's most helpful because I'm totally with Janet. I come to these sessions to learn, and then I try to be a multiplier for whoever did the great work like you, Tamara, does, and just pass it on. And what's really helpful is that if I have 2 or 3 slides that I know are 100% correct, so I don't have to get into building PowerPoints like I've even had to do for climate reality. And I can just reuse it. And this way I'm a much better replicator of the great work you have done. So I appreciate if I don't need huge PowerPoints, but maybe 2 or 3 that have like some basic facts about what PFAS is. That would be super helpful.
Yeah, and we've got all that for you. Yes. Janet, what do you know about PFAS?
Well, I know that they start way back with the nurdles, the very little things that are the basis for all plastics. And so that is spread accidentally from the manufacturer's location to start with. And those nurdles then, I have found some along the shore of the Mississippi River near a manufacturing plant. So, you know, you just go and you just pick them up. You know, look at how many of these I found. And that's plastic in your soil, in your sand, which is where your drinking water comes from. And the biggest concern, as I said, was that the health impacts. When I first heard that they are endocrine suppressors, and that they are affecting the fertility rates of more on men than women. Somehow it impacts the sperm. That they are also have been found in the bloodstream of pregnant women and the placentas of newborn babies. It's just terrifying to know that we have polluted our planet so blithely. And a lot of plastics that we use is just out of convenience. Yes, plastic has its place in, let's say, the medical profession, so they can dispose of. Maybe they'll come up with an alternative. There's no answers that are complete answers, you know, like as you mentioned about the polyester in fabric, the bags that you put them in, and they actually sell things called guppy bags, that if you've got a big item, it's a cloth bag, much like a lingerie bag for your wash. The little bit of lint that accumulates in the corners of them, I do end up pulling it out and then discarding it. At least it's not going directly into the water stream or, you know, into the soil and such. But as you said, no perfect answers for some of these things. I know that it's in the soil as well. When you think of how many garden plants come in little plastic tubs, and then we put it in the soil, and then worms have actually been found to have the PFAS in them. Worms, you know, they're eating them in our soil, and then we're getting tomatoes from our tomato plants growing in that soil. So if I'm going to work on any one thing, I don't believe I'm going to have a lot of impact on climate change and changing large organizations. I was able happily to go to my local local government and get them to allow plastic bags to be put into our recycling bins because they weren't originally allowed. And so, but I'm fortunate. I'm in a small enough community where I know the mayor. And so, you know, you're sitting next to him at a summer musical, a concert, outdoor concert. You say, hey, by the way, you know, he says, is there anything I can do for you? Yes, there is, you know. So, but it's outreach. You have to do a lot of outreach. You have to get others involved, which we've had a trouble with, trying to get others to come with us to do the presentations because we've been fortunate, as I said, to have been asked. There's an organization that one of my trio of friends is part of. It's the free speakers. You know, maybe you know the website. I don't handle that part, but where we get invited to places that we never would have thought would be interested in, and because we list the topics that we cover, and plastics is my forte, if you wish to call it anything. Like I said, we keep learning new things all the time. That 3 years ago, we would not have been able to say how much plastic you find in your water. But now the testing that they've been doing is finally coming out. And so it's ever changing, ever evolving what we're learning about them, and that there are ways to fix this problem. One of them is reduce the consumption of plastic. The second one is just stop producing plastic. But there, I'll stop. I'll get off my bandwagon.
Okay. Janet, thank you. So, Barbara, just 1 second. One of the things, I think you guys are thinking of the chemical, TBA. So PFAS is a little different. But Barbara, just real quick, so we can get into it. I'm pretty sure you know quite a bit about PFAS. You've attended one of my classes too, right? The part 1 and 2, Barbara.
I've attended more than one, but
So-
yeah, the biggest thing that I try to explain to people is the you know, stick-free coating on everything. And all the, you know, Teflon and all the new materials they come up with, they're pretty much all the same between the coatings and my grandson just bought some stuff to spray on his shoes to make them waterproof, and I'm just trying to explain to him that, you know, no, you know, this is not the answer. this is another thing. And of course, the spray foam that the firemen use to
Oh,
put
yeah.
out chemical fires and stuff it's PFAS. So there's it's in such use. Everybody just thinks that it's, you know, great, and just, you know, not so much.
So, let's see if this owl follows me. I'm talking over here. Oh, keep going. Yes. Okay. So this phone, this has
We
PFAS
can't
on.
see it.
No?
Hold it a little low. There you go. Hold it a little
Yeah.
lower. There
Yeah.
you go. Yep.
And do you think this phone has PFAS? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially the
Um,
plastic cover on it.
What about this takeout box?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Feel it?
Yeah.
Is it coated? We can't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then if it's coating on it, it
Yeah,
probably does.
some of the coatings are not quite as bad, but they're all bad.
Right.
About
And yeah,
this
sure.
reusable coffee cup or
Is
not
that
reusable?
styrofoam?
Styrofoam.
Oh no,
Yeah.
God, styrofoam never decomposes. No, no.
PFAS, yes or no?
Yeah.
Definitely in the
Microwave
popcorn.
popcorn, yes or no?
The lining and the
Yeah.
packs especially, yeah, yeah. We're gonna be told no on all of these.
How about this makeup product here? It's primer,
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
acrylic paint.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
acrylic.
would be
Yeah.
sure.
What are you talking about? The paint or the container?
Paint.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it's acrylic, it's got nylon, which is a man-made substance, which
Okay,
probably used a
okay.
rosin to
Okay.
help it adhere. Yeah.
It says a tin can, aluminum can of a tea.
That should be
It's
okay.
used.
Should
Okay.
be okay.
Maybe not.
Sharp marker.
Probably not. I mean, probably
Well, the
has it in there.
plastic.
Yeah,
The
the plastic it's
plastic.
made of. Yeah.
So
Is that pencil? Lead
pencil.
pencil? Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, graphite pencil. Tea bag.
Well,
The lining?
the coating of the container.
Right. Right. As well as some tea bags have been made
Can't
out of
see what you got there.
fabric.
A rubber ring. It goes in your hose.
No, rubber's fine.
A jar, glass jar.
Glass is fine, but does it have a little bit of
But the lining,
the
yeah, the
lining to
lining and the
lid?
cover.
Yeah. So the glass is
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
And let's see. And lastly, some Post-it notes.
Hmm.
I bet you
The
they've got
sticky
some.
stuff? The sticky
Probably.
stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
Okay.
the glue holding it together.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the only things you guys were pretty darn good that do not contain PFAS. The pencil, the tea, and this, do you see the let me see if I can get it in there. Do you see the certification from Environmental Working Group?
No, didn't see it first, but I see it
Okay.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something we want to look for. That's a certification that's PFAS free. And you were right, this glass is fine, the lid is not.
Okay.
So let's get into this a little bit more detailed with a PowerPoint slide here. And then this will be some similar to one that you'll be able to share. It's a little bit different, but let's see. Slide view slideshow. All right. So the Environmental Working Group will have a lot of other chemicals that you can look at their website and see. Some are regulated, some are not, such as PFAS, right? PFAS is just now in about 11 or 13, 14 states now. Some of them are being regulated and some are not. So this is the Connettagwinnett Creek watershed And this creek, I love it. As you can see, it's where the sky meets the water. It's just incredible. And me and my puppies, we love it. But the watershed will pick up everything, all these contaminants, these chemicals, and microplastics. And everything we love depends on this creek, you know, from our recreation to the drinking water. And a lot of people's drinking water is surface water. Some of it is not. And these chemicals will get in the aquifers, can get in the aquifers, and definitely surface in well water. But, you know, this life is being impacted by PFAS and other toxic chemicals that are found in plastics. So PFAS are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances created around 1930 by 3M and then DuPont to used on to coat World War II tanks. They resist heat, oil, and water because they're made up of a strong chlorine and fluorine carbon bond. And so that's like the strongest bond that can be created. And because of this, they do not break down in nature. They, like microplastics, will last and last for decades, centuries, and bioaccumulate up the food chain. And therefore, they're, you know, they're considered to be persistent. And they're found in air, soil, and water. The places where they're used the most are in this chart. As you see, they're used in the fracking industry. They're used heavily. They aren't used, but they accumulate in waste management. Okay. They are put on metal coatings, chemical manufacturing, and as you see, plastic resin is right up there. When every piece of plastic gets pushed through the extruders and the molders, they use PFAS to prevent the machines from bunking up. All right. And so even if PFAS aren't intentionally added to these products, they will still contain PFAS. And so that's important. It's in all electronic equipment. That's why it's on your phone screens. Anything that, you know, says it's waterproof or smudge proof. It's on my eyeglasses. It's in your contact lenses. It's in so many things. Okay. It's in fracking fluid that they spread on roads as de-icers. Firefighting foam, which now they finally have legalized and are pushing replacement for the aqueous foaming foam. This picture was by a group in Denver, and they were initiating new recruits by spraying them with the foam. So there's a big lawsuit. 2,000 parts per trillion are allowed to be on plastics, and that's huge because non-detect is what's safe. 1 to 6 parts per trillion, you can think of it as a grain of salt, or even cracking a piece of grain of salt and throwing it in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. More than that is toxic, okay? And there are over 12,000 different PFAS chemicals in this class, depending on how you define it, all right? And they're trying to work that out too, because different regulating bodies in our government define PFAS differently. So anywhere between, it'll be defined between 4,000 and 12,000 and growing. It's also in tires, and therefore it's in also your synthetic playing surfaces, from artificial turf to poured in place playgrounds and tire crumb. People use this as mulch for things. It's being spread on your, you know, the plastic rolls that they're used in agriculture. It's coating those strawberry fields, everything. And it's, you know, not great for our youth playing on it, and it is illegally dumped here in Pennsylvania and everywhere else because it's so toxic. Landfills do not want it. These are just some of the products that we, you know, I brought out in my bag, and I've mentioned everything from waterproof mascara, or baby infant socks, sports bras, caulking, fishing line, archival paper, inks, you name it. I mean, I just walked through my house in 10 minutes and picked those things up. And I could walk through and basically carry my house out. It's very tragic. So EWG, 3 years ago or so, you know, found 42,000 sources of these toxic forever chemicals. This is a map, one of the maps, as well as that environmental working group map that you'll have access to through the toolkit, so you can find where are your potential point source pollutions for PFAS. It doesn't mean that there is point source pollution. It's just these areas, military bases, airports, industrial, companies that are, you know, do metal, do paper, do electronics, all of those use PFAS in producing their product, right? So there could potentially be PFAS contamination coming from these. It accumulates in the wastewater, biosolids, construction material, and as you saw, consumer products. So in the lower left, you can see I have circled, that's my town of Carlisle. Along the right, you can see the Susquehanna River, and this snaking river was that beautiful Conneaut Creek, where, you know, I get our water source, and about 20 some other municipalities do. Here's Carlisle Syntec, which is one of those dots that you saw, and it is doing something with, I think, computer chips or something. And that you can see it's surrounded by people, right? Residents a lot. Here, the same time, those maps will not address legacy industry. So we had a Carlisle Tire and Rubber for, you know, decades, as well as a Maslin Carpet and Dye, very both heavy with PFAS and many other contaminants. They were dumped in this legacy landfill, so those will not be on those maps either. Okay, so bear that in mind when you're looking at those maps. They're going to be showing you what's currently there now. Doesn't mean that they've, you know, come and gone or they're decades old. But this has a leachate coming out of it into this area at the top of this hill and into this primary stream, which enters that Conneaut Creek that I showed you earlier. And iron oxidizing bacteria are creating this poop. And that is probably filled with PFAS contamination. You could see the stream here entering the creek that I was on. So this creek that I've named Ferris Menares Creek just represents one of many creeks, right? That are in your personal watersheds. As you guys have mentioned, some of the health risks, from thyroid disease, testicular cancers, high blood cholesterol, preeclampsia, low birth weight, decreased fertility, and decreased efficacy in vaccines. But there's a whole lot of other ones too, right? And yes, Susan.
So a couple of questions. On the previous slide, like the thyroid disease, and it's right. Would you say, or is your sense that PFAS is one of the key sources of thyroid disease? Because I don't think I know anyone anymore who doesn't have to take thyroid medication. Is PFAS one of the key sources, or is that maybe one of them?
From all the numerous uh, webinars I've attended and conferences, what I'm getting the sense of is it is a major contributor. Now, one of the things that is not studied, and they're trying to rework things, right, is cumulative toxicity and encompassing toxicities, right? Because where you find these PFAS, what else are you finding? You're finding phthalates, you're finding the PBAs and their replacements, you're finding all those other endocrine disruptors and all those other toxins, right? But in isolated, singular test results, yes. Girls are getting fatty liver disease at 11. So, yeah, I do think that PFAS is a big contributor. Now, I am not a scientist, just to preface that. Did you have another question?
Yes, second question real quick. Do you feel like the EPA in this case is truly understanding this issue? Because it depends on the topic, right? Where the EPA is sometimes very controversial, but you think for PFAS, the information from the EPA is really something to point people to.
I have referenced it in the toolkit repeatedly. They finally have up-to-date information on there. There was a big case in the largest epidemiological study ever done, I think 69,000 people, in the big court case with DuPont, with Brock Bidlet, and many other cases have followed for millions of dollars in lawsuits, and without a doubt, these, as well as many other diseases, are being linked back to PFAS. And that took place in 2000. Okay. And at that time in 2000, it was known that DuPont had its own studies that on their own workers that showed these connections in 1970s. So they have been hiding it from the EPA and other regulatory bodies. However, they did know about it in 2000 and have sat on it and done nothing until,
sounds like Exxon, right? Sounds like Exxon.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, it's DuPont and 3M and, yeah. So all of them, yes. So it's still an uphill battle because they aren't going to be able to regulate and put the levels where they need to be, because they're going to, quote, include the fiscal, the verbiage, my mind isn't able to say it, but basically, they're going to say cost analysis, basically, but they're going to leave out the healthcare costs. That it's impacting the children's brain development, like it's causing autism and Asperger's, and causing them to not be able to sit still, and just so much, it's impacting learning and brain development in so many ways. Depression, all these things, right? So I'm like, okay, you want to do your cost benefit analysis or whatever they call it, that's fine. You need to start including that, and then the impact on wildlife and biodiversity and whatever, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
thank you.
all of this has crossed over. Microplastics, PFAS have crossed over the blood-brain barrier, the placental barrier. The first baby stool, when it is born, has all of that in it. It's in the fetal heart, liver, kidneys, brain, lungs. So this is the place where the big impacts are happening, right? It's in this fetal stage in infants and young children. Those are our most vulnerable populations, okay? So this is the population. This is what we care about right here. So some of the things that EPA needs to address are to include blood testing and health monitoring, which they aren't, especially for communities with high levels, right? Test sources other than drinking water. Ban the use of frac fluid as a de-icer on roads and on agricultural fields. Test and monitor the biosolids before they get spread onto farm fields. We're finding all over the country that the farm fields are heavily, we're talking thousands of parts per trillion, when remember, any more than 1 to 4 is unsafe, okay? To test and monitor for landfill leachate, because what they do is the landfill leachate, they go and bring that to the wastewater treatment plant, process that through, and where does it exit? In my case, back out to that river, right? Or to the creek. And that goes in line for the next township's drinking water. Doesn't make sense. And believe it or not, you will get more chemicals, more PFAS in the effluent, the effluent than the influent. And you will also get chemicals forming, such as DDT. So they weren't, PFAS were, say, maybe 10 going into the treatment plant, and there was no DDT detected. Coming out of the plant, you have more PFAS, DDT, and who knows what else too. And we need to hold the polluters responsible, not the people. There's a law right now, a federal law. I didn't have time to do this, but I'm going to get together with other people who are working on legislation. We have a federal legislation and state legislation. And we need to have a, how Climate Reality has our climate action moment now, and I'll put together, so we can do letter sign-ons and write our own and that kind of thing. So, like I said, move past plastic. We want to educate people about the hazards of PFAS, help you reach out to your municipality and help support them with their drinking water testing and everything. The problem is right now, if they haven't started this, they're going to be fighting for the funding. They're going to be fighting for engineers. They're going to be fighting for labs to test. They're going to be fighting for permits for remediation, because almost I would say over half of the country's water systems, whether they're municipal or third party, they're going to have remediation done. So they're going to have to fight for all of this. So the sooner you can help your municipality along, the better. We, like I said, we want to work on state and federal legislation. Yes, Suzanne.
All right, another question. I found, especially when you work with the communities and talk to people, is to start making it very personal, right, for them. So the first thing is always, okay, so what do I do, right? What can I personally do for my family? And I find it helps educate before people get more involved to actually write to their governor or whoever. That's what I found. Do you what can you do for your family? What do you do, right? Because I don't want to buy drinking water that's shipped from Europe, like Evian, which comes in plastic, or Pellegrino, which in Europe is considered as a really bad water. And then on top of that, I mean, I wouldn't buy wine that's traveling far and then you ship water around the world, right? That's even crazier. But like in Germany, I can get well water, I can get really healthy water, I can buy in glass bottles that, you take back to the place where you bought them, and then you buy a new full container. Like here, I've bought some really expensive water that, is supposedly rainwater, that was produced from rainwater, in glass bottles. I have a Berkey filter here in my house, and when I travel, so I would never buy a plastic bottle anywhere. But does Berkey filter things out? What do you do?
Okay, so we will skip to that. This is the PFAS toolkit, okay, and you'll get access to this. You'll fill out a form that says, hey, send me the PFAS toolkit, and I'll say, okay. And I want you to fill out that form because I want to be able to follow up with you, see if you have any questions. It's quite an extensive toolkit. It has a table of contents. It's in Google. So as you can see, you can pop out this little thing here and that will help you navigate it, because just the pop outs you can see are quite extensive.
Wow.
So there's a Spanish speaking section that I am borrowing from the Green Latinos. I'm referencing you to them. I talk about crafting your own personal message, as you were saying, Suzanne. And then I have those PFAS contamination sites. So when you were talking about make things personal, so you can go and get your own map. You know how I showed you a map of my community, right? And so you would get a map of yours, and you would show a map of your watershed, your problems, right? I have general talking points. And then, you know, just general stuff in there. Then there's this state by state comparison. You need to go here to find out, hey, what is my state doing right now?
Mhm.
Okay. So these are talking points for specific concerns. So like if you're pregnant and have young children, if you are live or work near a military base, compost, biosludge. I have maps on all of this. We have, let's see what else. Live near a landfill. I'm not doing this. It's having fun on its own. Yeah. Oh goodness. Go away. So there, if you live near fracking, different specific things. Okay, so that's what you'll use this toolkit for. Let me migrate this. This is your let's see. Yeah, this is your big toolkit here. And this is going to give you PowerPoints, recordings of part 1 and 2. Here's your 10-minute presentation that you can just play for your municipal leaders, or, you know, public works director, what have you, which I have a whole nother kit that tells you who you're supposed to talk to and how you build your team. So everything I'm saying, you'll get this recording, you'll get these toolkits. In this one single toolkit, you'll get the media toolkit, you'll get the recordings, the PowerPoint slides. You'll get the links to legislation, federal and state. You'll get information about that unregulated monitoring rule 5, which is where, you know, your community can reach out for funding. It has the PFAS life cycle in here, these maps where you can find your own problems, you point sources, European map. I have the landfill maps, biosolid maps, frac tracker, well maps, oil and gas threat maps. I have freshwater fish maps, wildlife maps, EPA maps, PA mine maps. So, and then in part 1, I go over how is my watershed. This is so critical. We don't have time tonight. We have 10 minutes left, but I definitely would watch part 1, because once you find your point source, you need to know, how does your watershed work, right? Because things are going to go from the top of that basin down to a point, right? And how is my waterway has a bunch of information from who's discharging and where are they already testing, what are values that they're testing, you know, from PFAS to nitrogen, phosphate, whatever, right? So this is all watershed stuff. So then we get into laboratory testing and the test methods, the sampling, a couple of labs that you can go to. I've highlighted this here. Actually, I will heck, that's me. Move this up. I'll highlight it right now. I also have the highlight in this is where you can get a personal test kit. It's $79. I have this down in the personal area as well. But these are different labs. I talk about blood testing. It is not covered by health insurance, but we talk about who should get tested and why. And I believe, yeah, I think it's the PFAS exchange. They have a online test that can guess based on the PFAS in your drinking water, what your blood PFAS in your blood might be. So there's that. Here's one for the sludge, and then here's your home test kit right here. Cyclopure. Oh, it's your TAP score right here. So that's pretty neat. That's one. And then I put who you can reach out to if you have a well, because wells aren't paid for and they're not going to be known. So I have a list of sources where you could see, you know, universities, conservation district, state schools, etc., you know, where you can find out if they are testing for wells. That way it doesn't cost you. Then I have here personal exposures, some of which we've talked about, but I give specific other links, you know, and ways to safeguard your home and family. Suzanne, you were asking about that. So that you'd want to, you know, bounce to this section here, because I'm being very specific and giving you lots of things from skincare to healthcare products, to all kinds of things. I have right here PFAS-free certifications that you can look for, scorecards. So there's tons of information in here. Textiles, I've broken it down. Toys, biodegradable, compostable, outdoor tents. Here's more on health monitoring and screening. Pennsylvania Central is good for updated news, scientific papers, and events. Now we get to your home drinking water filter, because you were mentioning that, Suzanne. So the filter, there's 6 different kinds of National Sanitation Foundation certification, and they're in here, but the one you want is highlighted. You want to find a filter that is a NSF P473. So your Brita filter, that's not going to filter PFAS. Not going to work. Okay. So a lot of the filters out there do not work. So I explain that, and then I put my favorites in here. This is the one I'm going to have installed in my house, hopefully in a few months. This is the one I've been using for the past year. So I, you know, give you a bunch of resources to go to. And then other stuff, and I detail more about filters and types of treatment. So this types of treatment, now you're kind of back into your municipality, right? If they need to treat their water systems, this is the kind of things this technology is what they'll be looking for. Most of it is not at a large scale. And if it is, it's very expensive and very energy intensive. There's a lot of things in the works for, you know, eliminating specific types of PFAS with less energy and less expense. actually breaking them down. But right now you can only collect them with granular activated carbon for the most part, or your osmosis filters, which are using that as well. And I have those upcoming remediation solutions that are out there. So as I find them, I put them in there. And then here's some more financial technical assistance for your community.
This is amazing.
Yeah, good. And then I have more grants and federal grants, state grants,
Mhm.
PFAS specific. Yeah, and I got a tiny bit lax because I had to catch up with updating this, and I put some things in here with putting their citation. So there's a few things, probably 5 or 6 things running around here without citations. So I'll have to go back and do that. But for the most part, everything is hyperlinked anyway. But there's that. In this kit, you will get engaging your municipalities to test their drinking water. And this kit is going to give you very, very specific to-dos, and it's walking you through with what to do first, right? And so it gives you some of the same information that was on the main kit, right? But it's all in one place so that you can go to your municipality. And then I go into here, how to build your directory. What is your directory made up of? Your watershed specialist, and who are they? Your governing leaders. So you have these to fill right in. And I'm telling you all through here what to ask. Questions that you ask them, what steps you do next, etc., etc. So this would be in part 2, okay, of the recordings. And that's about all we have time for today. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to ask for any final questions or comments or anything that you could think of.
I think the work you did with the kit is fantastic. I need to figure out for the work I do. I learned a lot. I will pick up a lot. I'm not sure I'm gonna be like a PFAS expert, right? Because it's so broad. The environmental topics are so broad, but at least I can point them to all this great work, and I have some basics I can use for my evangelizing.
Yeah, and like I said, I haven't had a live part 1 and 2 in a while. I was doing them monthly for a while, and so now I kind of have stopped, but I'll probably schedule another one. But you can get the part 1 and 2, and watch the recordings, and it will make you feel more confident. And part 2, like I said, it goes through that municipality list very succinctly. And I do plan on at some point, if I ever get a chance, to make things more bite-sized, like 10, 15-minute, 5-minute segments, so you can just watch a little bit at a time, because it's kind of like throw up, overwhelm, but
yeah, but that's true for any topic related to the environment, right? Because from my background, I'm so used to being the expert, and after I started for the first year in climate reality, I was frozen in the end, because I could not do so much. I tried to understand, and I didn't get anything done because I was just busy with learning. So now I'm just pick and choose, and I see where I have interest, and then I focus on that. For example, one of the things that Janet, I may actually reach out, because in a couple of months, because like going to the high school and doing updates there, right? I think that's a great way to spread the news. But
yeah, And I'm glad you both mentioned that, because that's where I'm actually wanting to move, is to get back with the kids. I'm a former science teacher. I've taught college through middle school, all subjects but physics. And I really, really miss my kids. I've been working in the adult world since COVID and going to all these, literally thousands. When I say thousands, I do mean thousands. I went 4 to 6 a day for probably 2.5 years of webinars and conferences.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
now I'm like you said, Suzanne, I'm producing and doing and everything. But one of the things I want to start having these Bosler series conversations is I want to have an action for us. So I'm going to attempt to have an immediate action that we can do. That's, hey, bite size, do it. And it might just be a sign-on letter or a petition letter or, whatever, but at least something, that we feel like we can tackle. So one legislation or whatever. Janet?
Right. Yes, I don't know if you're familiar with the app on your phone, Climate Action Now. They give you
Yes.
someone you can be in touch with, and they even send you a link to who's your representative or your senator and such. And they're not always about plastic, but they're about other issues I'm concerned about too. But it was something that we had taught a class at our local organization. It's called the Renaissance Academy. It's for all retired people who want to take classes, and we take turns being the teachers. So we've had like a fireman and a police investigator, come and talk about these things. But they've all joined Climate Action Now, and they've all reported back to me how happy they were to have done so. So if you haven't done it yet, consider it, because it's real easy. It takes 5 minutes to do
No,
something. Yeah,
working with them to see if they will help me with this, because like you said, they have the system already set up.
right.
And I'm working with Anthropocene Alliance, and that they're helping me with, creating, the forms and the emails and the thises and the that's, but it's the easier I can work with, Climate Reality, where they have that, and we can just do that. Where you take your scan, your QR code, do your due, and we can do other things. But I definitely am working on brainstorming topics to go into the school with, and to talk to the teachers about. And it spans every single curriculum, from filming, music, English, math, just pick anything on single-use plastic. I call it the Keystone issue, because it connects to everything. And so if you guys want to be a part of, this brainstorming list, where we have our driving question and we have our resources, and, figure out, how we can all go to our own schools and help the teachers. Like here in Pennsylvania, teachers now have to work with these STEEL standards, they're called. And that's just basically where youth have to find an issue and figure out how to solve that issue and work through it. And it's fantastic, because it's more like how I like to teach, like real world. So whether it's, dog poop is on the ground. Okay, what are we going to do about that? And my kids, brainstormed, and we're like, okay, well, let's look at what's going on. Is anything being done? Are there ordinances already? Yes, there was. Okay, well, there's ordinances. Why aren't they working? What's the consequences? Okay, well, there's fines. And then, well, how about signs? Are there signs? Yes, there's signs at the park that says pick up your poop. Well, why aren't those working? Blah, blah, blah. And they are doing empathy diagrams for all the stakeholders and everything like that. And so just to get to their issue, everyone came up with different issues. They had to vote on the issue they wanted to work on. Then they have to, figure out solutions and vote on the solution. And then they have to figure out how to implement it. Each time they're constantly spiraling back and doing more research and talking to their stakeholders and doing these empathy diagrams and whatever, and they're coming out, and so they figured out that, okay, fines were too much. No one's going to report their neighbor for $1,000 fine. That just, they feel too mean, like I don't want to happen, but that's like a bit much. So let's try a warning, and then 100, and then, work our way up. And then the other was like, okay, signs aren't working. They wanted to put signs. So we decided to put up a sign with a QR code that led them to what is your poop IQ? So that got people interested. What do you mean, what's my poop IQ? And then process of going through the questionnaire, they were getting educated. Why is it important to pick up your poop? And what is the law? So that was their way. And then they have to see, hey, did your solution work? Is it still working? Something else need to be done, So that's the kind of thing that I would like to bring to the schools for all kinds of issues from, do they need plastic, at an elementary school, maybe, do they need to use plastic straws at a, you do different things at different ages, right? So if you're interested, reach out to me, go on the website. It has the different, initiatives that we're working on. We're doing a lot of them, from PVC, chemical recycling is next week, and as well as other waste management. So we have a whole series of things. And as an MPP member, sign up to be an MPP member. All it means is you get information, do with it what you want. If you see something we're doing that you like, you want to participate, whether it's just to learn or to actually do an action, do it. But for the most part, I do not pest. I do not have time, and I just don't. So don't feel you're not wanted. I desperately want you, but I'm not going to pest you. Okay. As Barbara knows. So I appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
A lot of good
Having this
info.
conversation.
Yes.
So night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Nice meeting you all.
Meeting.